When I was in college, I used to house sit for a family for a few years when they would go on their annual family vacations. I've had a handful of other scary, creepy experiences, but the one I want to talk about today was the one that forced me to quit house sitting for them. I was in my 20s and was trying to make ends meet. House sitting was one of the many side hustles I had. The family would be going on a 2-week vacation abroad and wouldn't have any service, so if anything went wrong, I would have to call the police or their relatives depending on the situation. Please keep in mind that I've already had a few creepy experiences with their house prior to this, but it was never scary enough to deter me because they paid me very well. I used to work at an animal shelter, so I was well versed in animal care, and I knew about cat behavior. This family had 4 cats who were all very well behaved. For the first few days, all was well. I slept in the guest bedroom and went to school from their house because they lived close enough to where I could just walk to class and didn't have to pay for parking or bring lunch since I could just go back to their place. Then the issues began after a few days. My boyfriend at the time came over with dinner to keep me company, as he knew I was always a bit creeped out by the house. We sat in the guest bedroom and watched TV for a few hours eating, until he said he needed to go home. Sometimes he'd sleep over, but he told me on this particular night that he had a strong gut feeling he needed to sleep at home. He urged me to go home because that gut feeling he had was really bad. At that point, it was around midnight, and to be honest, I didn't want to go home. To put it bluntly, I have a complicated home life and didn't get along with my parents. The only time I'd get a break from home was the annual house sitting once a year, and I didn't feel like wasting it. My only sibling, who's also my best friend, moved out due to the toxicity, and honestly, home wasn't home without them anymore. I told him that I'll be fine and I'll lock up after he left. He was still really uneasy and tried to persuade me to go home once again. He tried to explain that while he had slept over before, for some reason tonight the house just felt unsettling. I thought it was because the house was over a century old, but it was just renovated, so I felt better about it. I reminded him that there was a home security alarm that I always set, the neighborhood was safe, and I had 4 friendly cats with me. He reluctantly left and drove home, and that was when it started happening. I shut all the doors and windows, locked everything, and set the security alarm. Once I got comfortable in bed, the TV started to turn on by itself. We were just using the TV, so I thought I accidentally sat on the remote, but I saw the remote on the nightstand. I quickly turned it off. Just as it went off, it turned back on. I thought it was strange since the TV was working perfectly the entire night, but it was even stranger that when the TV turned on by itself, it went to this off channel like it was just black and white, like it had no signal. So I kept turning it off, and it kept turning on. I began to freak out and unplug the TV entirely. Even though I'd had creepy experiences before in this house, this one had never happened before. I told myself that the house was just renovated, maybe there were some wiring issues. I still didn't go home and went and slept on the couch instead. The next day, my boyfriend came over again. I told him about what happened the night before, and he told me that I should have just went home. I was pretty freaked out, but honestly, it was still not as bad as having to deal with my family. That night, we had dinner together again and watched a movie in the living room. For this next part, I do have to explain the house structure. The house is 2 floors. There's a first floor where you come in through the front door straight into the living room, and the second floor is actually the basement, which is essentially a big living room with another room that can be used as a spare bedroom. The stairs leading downstairs are incredibly creaky and creepy. I don't understand why they didn't fix it during the renovation. As for the cats, they love to be everywhere and anywhere. They all had the personality where they wanted to be around you, but not necessarily held or cuddled. They were all pretty calm cats that liked quieter environments. Of the 4 cats, there was one cat that was the youngest at around 3 years old, and he was just a bit smaller than the other 3. That night, as we watched the movies, my blood ran cold as I heard sounds from the basement that sounded like an infant crying. My boyfriend froze as he slowly turned to look at me, as if signaling to me silently if I heard it too. I remembered from my time working in the animal shelter during my training that sometimes cats sound like babies, especially if they're in duress. As I mentioned earlier, the cats like to be around people and will follow you around the house, but not close enough to cuddle. I counted and only counted 3, The little younger cat was missing. I figured it must be the younger cat and went downstairs to the basement where I found it stuck in the spare room. He was smaller but more energetic than the other cats. He somehow closed the door behind him and was stuck in the room all alone. I carried him up the stairs and we resumed the movie. Mid-movie, we did pause it as it was time to feed the cats. The owners had a strict food schedule for their cats. The cats' food station was in the kitchen, and the kitchen was the only area that connected to the basement. To best explain the layout of the house, the main entrance connects to the living room. The living room then diverges into two different sections. One connects to the kitchen and the other connects to 3 bedrooms. One being the spare bedroom, a master bedroom, and another bedroom that belongs to the family's child, with the living room being connected to the kitchen as well. The kitchen was the connecting area where you must enter it to go to the basement or living room. For these cats, the only time that they didn't want to be around humans was while they were eating and after they ate, as they like to take naps or rest with their full bellies. They like to nap in the master bedroom or the teenager's room, as it smells like their family. They always did this every year that I babysat them, so it wasn't new. It also wasn't unusual to not see them for a little bit after mealtime. We finished our movie and went into the kitchen, void of any cats. As we were enjoying dinner, we both once again heard crying noises from the basement. It was naturally louder because we were in the kitchen, which was closer to the basement. I didn't see any cats in the kitchen, and I didn't think to check the living room because I was panicking internally. My boyfriend was visibly creeped out, and I told him I'd check it out since it was likely the cat again. I couldn't help but notice that the cries sounded a little different from earlier. It was more frequent and higher pitched. I turned on the lights to the basement and slowly crept down the stairs saying the cat's name. With each step, the crying got louder, but when I finally made it down, the crying abruptly stopped. I checked the spare room, any crevices, and under the couch. He was nowhere. At that point, I was feeling so scared I could hear my heartbeat in my head. I don't even go on regular walks, I definitely don't jog, and I absolutely don't run, but I ran up those stairs like my life depended on it. When I got back into the kitchen, I felt my whole body go cold as my heart sank. My boyfriend was standing in the kitchen with a horrid look on his face as all 4 cats surrounded him. He told me that as I went down the stairs to the crying noises, the 4 cats came out at the same time from the area where the bedrooms were. No cat had been downstairs the entire time. I immediately and silently packed up my items, jammed it into my backpack, and we both left the house. For the remaining week, I would only return to the house once a day to clean the litter box and feed them. I know I was going against their eating schedule, but at that point, I really didn't care. After the last day, I locked up, dropped the keys into their hiding spot, thanked them for the opportunity, but that it was my last time, and I never returned. I hated that house, and looking back, the experiences I had each year seemed like it was escalating. I should have stopped much sooner. I still remember calling my sibling during the drive to my parents' house after the incident. I felt even worse when they revealed that they also had their own experience in that house, and kept it away from me because they knew I was trying to save money to move out, and they didn't want to scare me.